It was a Saturday morning in late October, crisp and brilliant, the kind of day that felt washed clean by the coming winter. I was standing in the converted warehouse loft of my younger sister Chloe, surrounded by dozens of people, all of them waiting. The air was thick with the scent of cinnamon and manufactured suspense. This was her gender reveal party. Chloe, at 32, was the dreamer, the artist who saw magic in the mundane. She'd spent her life chasing light, first as a photographer, now as a mother-to-be. I was Emma, the older one, the cardiac surgeon, trained to see flaws, to anticipate catastrophic failure, to cut away the sickness and restore the rhythm. Our worlds rarely overlapped, but today, they collided in a blast of pink and blue anticipation. She pressed the ultrasound photo into my hand. "Isn't he perfect, Em?" she asked, her voice a fragile flutter of excitement. The tech was so sure it's a boy. Liam. We've already started calling him Liam. My hand, usually steady enough to stitch a major artery, clenched around the glossy image. I didn't need a medical degree to know that something was desperately wrong. I saw the image not as an excited aunt, but as a physician. The structure was an anomaly. The borders were blurred. The heart, the supposed tiny thrumming miracle, was either absent or obscured by an unmistakable dense mass. It wasn't fetal tissue. It wasn't a baby. The blood drained from my face, a cold, sickening rush that left me momentarily dizzy. I forced a smile that felt like tearing my own skin. "He's beautiful, Chloe," I managed, the lie tasting like ash. "I've delivered bad news 1,000 times, told families that a heart transplant failed, that the tumor was aggressive, that there was no more time. But those were strangers. This was Chloe, my sister, standing a few feet from a cake that would reveal the color of her deepest, most cherished hope." I slipped the scan into the deep pocket of my wool coat, the silence inside my head deafening compared to the party's cheerful roar. Her husband, David, a man whose kindness was as solid as his carpentry, was joking with our father near the drink station. Our mother was documenting every second with her phone, convinced this baby was her final, perfect legacy. "You're quiet," Chloe said, bumping my arm. "Just surgeon brain? You should relax. Everything is perfect." "I am," I lied again, turning to look at the room. Everything was perfect. Balloons, streamers, a little man or a little Miss Banners. A perfect tableau built on a foundation of professional malpractice and a devastating lie. The woman who performed that scan, whoever she was, had given Chloe a ticket to heartbreak. I moved away from the main cluster of people, feeling the familiar, icy pressure of impending crisis settle behind my ribs. Years of high-stakes operating rooms had taught me to function in this state. Calm exterior, ruthless internal focus. I needed confirmation, and I needed to isolate David. He was by the espresso machine, laughing. When I caught his eye, my forced neutrality must have failed because his smile vanished. He saw the shift in my posture, the tightness around my mouth, the look I usually reserved for the moments before a 9-hour surgery. I walked straight toward him, weaving through the happy noise. "David," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Now, we need to talk." His eyes darted to Chloe, then back to me, the worry flickering like a loose wire. "What is it? Did I forget something?" "No, inside, the laundry room." He followed me instantly, the noise of the party dulling as we stepped over the threshold into the quiet. Fluorescent-lit utility space. He closed the door, cutting off the festive thumping. "Emma, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I took a deliberate breath. "The scan. The one she's carrying around." He frowned, his brows knitting together. "It's Liam. The boy." "David, I'm a doctor. I see more anatomy in a day than most people see in a year. That image, it's not a viable fetus. It's not Liam." His face went blank. The color drained away, leaving his skin the shade of cold porcelain. He looked at me as if I'd struck him. "What are you saying?" She's been feeling him move. She has a name, a nursery. I know what she thinks she feels. But the image is conclusive. It's an irregular, solid mass. It's large. It's serious. This isn't a pregnancy, David. It's a crisis. He sagged against the dryer, his breathing suddenly shallow and ragged. No, you have to be wrong. Please, tell me I misheard you. I wish I were. But I am absolutely certain. I'm a surgeon, David. I've seen this before. We need to get her to the hospital tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight. Outside, someone started a collective countdown. 10, 9. The party was accelerating toward the moment of truth. David covered his mouth with a shaking hand. I can't tell her. Not out there. Not with 50 people watching her heartbreak. We won't tell her here. We can't. But whatever this mass is, it shouldn't wait. We need immediate, real imaging and a full workup. I'll call ahead. You have to get her out. 5, 4. The crowd's anticipation was a physical wave pressing against the door. What do I tell her? He whispered desperately. Tell her I got a page. A major trauma at the hospital. Tell her I'm panicking and I need you to drive me back now. Anything. Just make it urgent, and make it about me. 3, 2. He nodded slowly, the terror in his eyes replaced by a terrible, brittle resolve. 1. A massive cheer erupted. The door to the laundry room rattled. Pink confetti, bright and joyful, drifted past the small window. The lie had just won. We stepped back into the loft. Chloe was glowing, tears of joy streaming down her face as she hugged our mother. Her father was filming the pink cake, the symbol of the girl they now believed they were having. She saw us and rushed over, her face a vision of pure, unadulterated happiness. It's a girl, Em. It's our little girl. I was so sure it was Liam, but look, it's a Lily. My heart ached with a deep physical pain. This was worse than any operating room. David forced a grimace. Babe, I'm so sorry. Emma just got a page. Major trauma. She needs to get back to the hospital, now. I have to drive her. Chloe's smile faltered, her joy interrupted. Now? But the cake? The champagne toast? I know, I said, keeping my tone clipped and professional, the tone of a surgeon in crisis. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical. Chloe, I'm so sorry. Stay and enjoy the party. David will be back as soon as he drops me off. She pouted. Then, being Chloe, she softened. Oh, Em, of course. Go, save a life. She hugged me quickly, pressing her stomach against mine. I felt the firmness of the mass beneath her skin, and my composure nearly cracked. Text me, she said. Tell me you're okay when you get a minute. I will, I promised, already walking toward the door. 10 minutes later, David was speeding toward the hospital. I was already on the phone with Dr. Julian Voss, the lead OB-GYN at my hospital, a trusted colleague. Julian, it's Emma. I'm bringing my sister in. Urgent. I need a full diagnostic panel, advanced OB-GYN imaging, STAT. I saw her ultrasound from a boutique place. It's not a pregnancy. It's a very large, suspicious mass. I'm calling it in as an acute surgical abdomen, rule out malignancy. I need you there. Julian's professional detachment was a relief. I hear you, Emma. Bring her straight to the ER. We'll be ready. At the emergency entrance, David, following my precise instructions, convinced Chloe that I was being admitted for an acute stress reaction and that he needed her to come in and sign paperwork. Inside the hushed, dim ultrasound suite, the truth was laid bare on the screen. A solid, complex ovarian mass, roughly the size of a 5-month fetus. The tech's face was unreadable, but the silence was deafening. Julian walked in, took one look, and quietly ordered an immediate surgical consult. Chloe stared at the screen, her eyes wide with mounting confusion. Where is she? Where is Lily? Julian approached her gently. Chloe, there is no baby, no heartbeat. What we're seeing is a large, non-fetal mass that is growing in your abdomen. David sank into a chair, letting out a choked sob. Chloe didn't scream or cry. She simply became still, a beautiful sculpture of devastation. But I felt her, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I felt her kick. I talked to her. I know, honey, I said, finally stepping forward. My carefully constructed surgeon's armor was crumbling. It's called phantom quickening. Your body prepared for a baby, and you felt what you expected to feel. Her world didn't shatter, it imploded. Julian, a man of calm authority, explained the urgency. The mass needs to come out immediately, Chloe. We need to schedule this for first light. We're paging Dr. Alistair Chen, one of the best surgical oncologists in the region, just to be safe. It's large, but your general vitals are stable. We need to act fast. She looked up, her eyes finally finding mine. No anger, only a crushing, bottomless grief. You knew, she whispered, the accusation soft, yet lethal. At the party. You knew it wasn't Lily. I suspected, I corrected, my own voice trembling. I saw the image, and I knew it was wrong. I wasn't certain until this moment. I couldn't tell you in front of everyone, Chloe. I couldn't crush you without proof. She nodded slowly, a single tear tracing a path through the makeup on her cheek. Thank you for getting me here. Surgery was scheduled for 6 a.m. I stayed, of course, pacing the silent, empty hallway, while David sat by her bedside, holding her hand, his head bowed. As they wheeled her to the OR, she gripped my hand with surprising strength. The woman who did the scan, she murmured. Don't let her do this to anyone else. Promise me. I promise, I said, the words of vow etched in cold resolve. Dr. Chen emerged 3 hours later, his face tired but relieved. She did well, Emma. The mass was large, encapsulated, and we got clear margins. We'll await pathology, but physically, she will recover. David wept openly. I stood rigid, feeling the relief only as a sharp pain behind my eyes. Not yet. 2 days later, the pathology report confirmed what we desperately hoped. The tumor was a benign, though aggressive, teratoma. Chloe was safe, physically at least. The emotional recovery was another matter entirely. She was vacant, the light gone from her eyes. She refused to look at the nursery, now a museum of a future that never was. She spoke in monosyllables. Dr. Warren, a compassionate trauma therapist, began visiting, navigating the deep, specific grief of losing a child who was never there, a grief complicated by the feeling of being actively deceived. One evening, staring at the ceiling, she whispered, "How many women? How many others did that studio trick? How many of us felt kicks, talked to a lie, bought clothes for a ghost?" Her question was a call to action. I couldn't fix her heartbreak, but I could fulfill my promise. I would stop the people who had done this. I started with the place Chloe had visited, DreamScan Studio, nestled innocently between a yoga studio and a juice bar. Their website promised 4D HD baby previews and early gender guarantees, marketed as keepsake imaging. Crucially, there was no mention of medical licensing, certified sonographers, or diagnostic disclaimers. It was all pink, blue, and happy deception. I began digging into online reviews and forums. Buried beneath the 5-star praise were the dissenting voices. A woman who was told she was having a perfectly healthy boy. Her OB found a severe congenital heart defect 2 weeks later. A couple who paid extra for a guaranteed heartbeat scan. They miscarried a week later, realizing the studio had faked the rhythm. A woman named Sarah, who emailed me back instantly. DreamScan missed her placenta previa, a life-threatening complication. They said everything was absolutely fine, she wrote. I went to the ER bleeding out 3 days later. They almost killed me. Another victim, Mark, told me how his wife's ectopic pregnancy, an immediate life-or-death scenario, was dismissed by the DreamScan tech as a little blob, probably just camera weirdness. I spent 4 nights compiling the evidence, medical reports, screenshots of the deceptive marketing, detailed testimonies, and bills for non-diagnostic, expensive packages. A clear pattern of catastrophic negligence and reckless endangerment emerged. I contacted the State Board of Health and the licensing division immediately, speaking to investigator Thomas Flynn. "We know these places exist," he said grimly. "They operate in a legal gray area, claiming not to be medical facilities. But if you have proof of them actively making diagnostic claims and missing life-threatening issues, we can shut them down." I furnished him with everything: the reports, the testimony, and Chloe's medical charts. Next, I called Rachel Vance, an investigative journalist known for taking down corporate health scams. "This isn't just malpractice, Emma. It's consumer fraud and negligent homicide waiting to happen. Send me everything. This needs to be a headline." Flynn arranged for a coordinated regulatory shutdown. I insisted on going. We arrived at DreamScan on a Tuesday afternoon. The owner, Candace Miller, a woman with a fixed, almost manic smile, was behind the counter, surrounded by crystal-clear baby photos. Pink walls, soft lighting, and the chirpy sound of a fake fetal heartbeat loop playing softly through the speakers. A theater of false hope. "Can I help you, ladies?" Candace asked, her smile dissolving as she saw the badges and the stern faces of the investigators. "Candace Miller," Investigator Flynn stated, his voice booming in the quiet room. "This facility is operating outside of its charter and is hereby ordered to cease and desist all operations. Your equipment is being seized." Candace stiffened. "This is ridiculous. We're a keepsake place. Customers know it's for entertainment." "No," I cut in, stepping forward. I was no longer Emma the sister. I was Emma the surgeon, cold and lethal. "My sister was told she was having a baby. She almost died because your untrained technician missed a grapefruit-sized tumor. Sarah almost bled out in her apartment. Mark's wife nearly lost her life from an undetected ectopic pregnancy. That's not entertainment, Candace. That's negligence." For the first time, her facade cracked. Fear, raw and ugly, flickered in her eyes. "Your sister must have misunderstood." "She understood you told her the lie she wanted to hear, and that lie was deadly." Rachel Vance's news crew arrived shortly after the premises were secured, filming the sealed machines, the confiscated documentation, and the official notices on the door. Rachel interviewed me on the curb, the afternoon light catching the anger in my eyes. "What do you want the women watching tonight to understand?" she asked. "That a picture isn't a diagnosis," I said, my voice cutting through the traffic noise. "Ultrasound is a medical tool. When unlicensed, untrained people wield it for profit and pretend it's medicine, they destroy lives and futures. The cute picture they hand you might be the reason you don't survive your next complication." The exposé aired that night. The community recoiled in shock. More victims came forward. A major coordinated malpractice suit was filed by attorney Marcus Hale. I sat behind Chloe as she testified, her voice thin but steady, recounting the sheer, agonizing joy of believing in Lily and the surgical trauma of the subsequent reality. "I loved a child that was never there," she said, staring straight at the jury. "Because someone handed me a piece of paper and lied." Candace stared at the floor throughout the entire trial. The verdict was a wave of relief, guilty on all counts. Candace was barred from all health-related businesses and ordered to pay significant restitution to the victims. As she was escorted from the courtroom, her face finally reflecting the ruin she had wrought, I felt the first release of breath I'd allowed in months. Chloe reached back, finding my hand. "You saved more than my life, Em. You kept your promise." And she smiled. A real, unfaltering smile. Chloe's healing was slow, a series of small, hard-won victories. Dr. Warren continued her sessions. David became her constant shadow, a quiet, solid presence that anchored her in the real world. I continued to visit, handling the paperwork, the complex insurance claims, and the endless little tasks that trauma makes impossible. Months passed. The sterile, expectant silence in the nursery was the hardest thing to conquer. One evening, 8 months after the surgery, Chloe called me and asked me to come over. Her voice was different, lighter, holding an unmistakable thread of excitement. When I arrived, David's eyes were glistening. He hugged me tightly. "In the living room," he whispered. I walked in and stopped. Chloe was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, but she wasn't alone. Cradled gently in her arms was a tiny bundle, swaddled in a pale yellow blanket. The baby's eyes, dark and wide, blinked slowly, taking in the world. "Emma," Chloe whispered, her smile luminous, a sunrise after a long winter night. "This is Leo. We finalized the adoption this afternoon." A wave of emotion, hot and overwhelming, finally broke my composure. I sat beside her, tears streaming down my face for the first time. I reached out and touched Leo's impossibly small, perfect hand. It curled around my finger, a true, tangible miracle. "I thought I couldn't love again," Chloe murmured, leaning her head against mine. "Not after what happened. But the moment I held him, I knew. He's ours. He was always supposed to be ours." I held them both, the silent joy of the moment filling the space where the fear had lived for so long. "You saved my life, Em," Chloe whispered again. "The truth you chose, however brutal, saved us. It gave us this." I didn't need to reply. Sitting there, feeling the weight of my sister's head on my shoulder and the delicate grip of Leo's hand, I finally felt the peace settle in. The lie would have killed her, stolen her future, and shattered everything. The brutal truth had been the hardest path, but it had made room for this honest, hopeful, and fiercely real life. Families are not defined by the perfection of their dreams, but by the courage they find to survive the nightmares together.